Hello and welcome back to Keep Right On, our Birmingham City podcast, brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined by our Birmingham City reporter, Alex Dicken, who has come fresh-faced and hopefully now dry from last night's 2-1 victory over Watford. All good in the world of Alex Dicken?
Very good. I missed the rain, Brian, so I wasn't soaked walking into that press room.
You missed the rain?
I did miss the rain, yeah. There must have been like a 5-minute window from my walk from the car park to the press room where it wasn't raining, so I was absolutely fine.
Not the people who've tuned in for this, but I spent most of the last 3 days fearing trench foot. I was up at Middlesbrough for the game against Derby last Saturday, and then the dog walk was a pretty soggy affair to the extent that she actually turned tail and wanted to go home last night. So. I'm stunned to hear that you escaped dry. Anyway, just to lay the table, as I said, we are going to be talking about last night's victory over Watford, a tough and tight game. We're going to look at the state of play in the Championship. Blues obviously moved to within a point of the playoffs. And then we're going to just look a little bit towards January. We'll be talking about January in a transfer window, tons and tons and tons between now and February the 1st. But we'll just have a sort of lift our heads above the parapet a little bit just to have a peek at that for the time being. Alex, where do you want to start with last night's victory? You've put on the running order here that was it the most satisfying home win? I was slightly surprised to see that. Explain yourself.
I think because we've just come off the back of 3 home wins where Blues have scored 4, and obviously they were extremely satisfying and enjoyable. But it was like, from my point of view, and everyone else's, the game was done from 60 minutes, wasn't it, in each of those matches? So to watch Blues kind of grind a victory out at home and come under a lot of pressure late in a game, that's the first time that has happened in a home victory this season. The Swansea game was a late winner for Blues. The Oxford game was almost a formality. The other 3 victories were, as I said, very big victories. So for Blues to come under pressure, to deal with that pressure in what was probably the most tense St Andrews has been this season, I think, late in a game, it's another string to their bow, another experience they've lived in the Championship, and one that they're definitely going to face again this season. Yeah,
you're right. It was. It felt strange, didn't it, seeing them trying to protect a lead, a narrow lead rather than a massive lead. It was pretty tense at home to Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't it? They were trying to scramble for an equaliser there, and the whole game wasn't much fun. But I can see that they showed something different yesterday that we maybe haven't seen so far this season. I was sitting there watching, thinking that one of 3 things are going to happen. Blues are going to get a third, which was the third least likely option in my mind. The second option, I thought, was the referee was going to send somebody off. I've seen a couple of Adam Herzog, is it, his matches in the last month or so, and I'm really not a massive fan of his officiating, and he was throwing cards around like confetti last night. And then I have to say, I really was quite fearful of a Watford equaliser. And I was pretty chuffed to see only 3 minutes added on, albeit there were 4 that were actually played, weren't there? So, what was in terms of the on-field action, the 2 things that stuck out most were clearly the goals, weren't they? Probably if you are Javi Gracia, you're pulling your hair out about both of those goals. But if you're Chris Davis, you're absolutely purring, right?
Yeah, they were superb goals. And to be fair, there wasn't much in the first half. There wasn't much in the entire game, but those 2 goals first half were absolutely superb. The first one was, Cipriani's got to do better in the block challenge with Paik, hasn't he? He's kind of just weak and too slow, and Paik's just bulldozed through him and gone forward. There's options right and left. Dutcher's made a clever run to take a defender away. It's opened up, and it's a stupendous finish, really, with the outside, almost the outside of his boot. He's curved it away from the goalkeeper into the corner. A really, really good goal. 4 league goals for him this season after 1 last season. I think, don't want to get back onto the subject of criticising Paik Sung-ho, but he did only get 1 league goal.
You make me laugh, Alex.
He did only get 1 league goal last season. That was something he clearly had to improve upon, given a player of his talent. So to have 4 after 18 games, fair play to him. And the second goal was just brilliant. It's one of those goals that you almost wish there was no crowd noise, and you could just hear the ball hit the back of the net because it would have made a lovely sound. Great finish by Gray. That's his 4th league goal as well, I think, and he's really come into his own over the last 3-4 weeks. Has added numbers to his game. So yeah, 2 brilliant goals. Gray, I'm guessing, will probably be a contender for Blues goal of the season when it comes about.
Yeah, for people that didn't get the reference, I'm probably a little bit more sore than Alex is, but Chris Davis said in an interview a few weeks ago that it made him laugh when people questioned Paik, and that was within about 3 days of me asking a question about Paik. So yeah, still a little bit touchy, but you're absolutely right. Should Cipriano have been on the pitch, do you think?
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. There was a little bit of debate. It was, was it a yellow? Was it a sending off? For me, it was a nailed on sending off.
There can't have been any debate, Brian. It was a shocker. That was. It was knee high. I mean, he clipped the ball maybe on his way through, but he's ultimately his studs have connected with Paik's knee. That's a terrible challenge, and to agree with Chris Davies, if VAR was involved, he would have 100% been sent off.
Yeah, indeed. I don't know why I've got it in for Cipriano, because I really rated him.
He was your darling, wasn't he?
It was. I really liked him. I guess it was the Wembley thing, had the temerity to score a worldie against Blues. But no, I've always liked him as a player, but I did think that was a bad challenge. And I wonder if that informed Paik's mindset as he was going through him in the build-up to his goal. It was such a strong challenge. I think Paik almost deserves an assist for his own goal. And as you say, I would say just about that. I thought Kevin Kebben had a decent game, and I quite like the look of him as a centre-back. But he showed a real lack of defensive understanding, just backing off, didn't he? And basically inviting Paik to shoot. So yeah, that was my take from that one. And then we'll come on to Tommy Doyle, I think, later. But Tommy Doyle had a very early involvement in Gray's goal, didn't he? Didn't he win the ball and it went through to Dutch, who then put it onto Stansfield, who then put it onto Gray. So we're not even talking pre-hockey assist here. But yeah, I thought Jay's build-up and general match Jay's build-up to that goal and general overall performance were excellent. So yeah, what did you make of Dimmy's overall performance? Because I will admit to feeling at times in the first half, when Blues were playing with good pace, he'd get the ball and the move would slow down a little bit at his feet. Is that fair?
Yeah. No, I think it is not. I think generally it does. If it slows down with anyone, it does slow down with him. I think that's maybe because he's more of an individual than the other attacking players. I think if he gets the ball, he wants to slow someone down and take someone on, and he can go both ways. He tries to get shots away. Sometimes I was quite frustrated against West Brom, actually, that it felt like he had a lot of shots in that game, but barely any of them, if any of them, did get past the first man that was in front of him. And I just think, you don't always have to smash the ball against the bloke 2 yards ahead of you. So I can take that point. I thought he did okay generally. I think Damari Gray's going to play in moments, isn't he? And thankfully, more often than not, his games are including 1 or 2 potentially match-winning moments at the moment. So I've been quite impressed of the trajectory that his season has gone on. I think he started quite slowly. I was a little bit underwhelmed the first month or 2, but I think since things have settled down, there's definitely attacking system and attacking patterns in place. I think he looks pretty good.
What I would say was noticeable last night, apart from the brilliant goal, and we should say that is 7 goal involvements now this season, which in championship level are decent numbers at this stage of the season. I was really impressed with his work rate off the ball and his tracking back. There was one incident in the second half where he gave the ball away just inside his own half, and then he basically tracked the player back to make a challenge in his own penalty area. And there was a couple of times in the first half as well where he was right back, almost next to Alex Cochrane, blocking things up back there as well. So, yeah, no real criticism of Dimmy from me, particularly at all. Just a couple of times where you think he likes to come back in on his right foot, doesn't he? I think that's what he's trying to do, and you can see why he's trying to do it, definitely. But sometimes you just think, maintain the possession, maintain the momentum of the attack. But yeah, I thought Keshi, when he came on, that was much needed energy as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think Keshi, final 20, 21 minutes, you wanted to bring him on to just shore things up. I think it was always going to be one of those games, given how tight it is, that Chris Davies is only going to pick the players to come off the bench that he trusts, that he wasn't going to make changes for the sake of making changes. And I think he made Keshi in 69. He had Lyndon Dykes come on for Dutch to give them that physical presence, which worked. He needed to bring on Samsted for Asai Samuel because he literally was spent. And then he did make another 2 changes till stoppage time was well underway. So he wasn't going to make changes for the sake of making changes. Keshi Anderson, I'm not surprised, was first port of call for Chris Davies because he's spoken a million times, and the word he always uses is reliable. You can trust Anderson in those situations, and he did his job.
Yeah, he also spoke about Dimmy's work off the ball post-match as well, but you are absolutely right. Which brings us on to the next subject, the midfield duo. Alex, I'll just ask you now, are you Team Paik or are you Team Doyle?
God, that is a good question because I've always been Team Paik. Can we have another couple of months to decide this, Brian? We're in the infancy of this partnership. I can't be deciding that now.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Obviously Paik got a lot of comment because of the goal, but I don't think Doyle's contribution last night should be underestimated or just glossed over either, because there were a couple of moments where he was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, we know what he can do on the ball by now. He gets it. He can pick a pass. He can switch the play so well to Damari Gray, particularly. So many of those raking long balls have become a theme of Blues play in recent weeks. But the thing that actually is impressing me most about Tommy Doyle is the way he always seems to be landing on loose balls. The attack breaks down, you think, and then Tommy Doyle intercepts and gets Blues going again. He makes tackles. He's just... when we think back to the start of the season, he wasn't able to get in the team, and there's a lot of frustration around it. Chris Davies made it clear that Doyle had to understand the defensive side of Blues play as well as doing what he can do with the ball going forward, and he just seems to have grasped it. He's got it, and he looks absolutely like the beating heart of Blues at the moment. Everything's going through him, and his play's been superb.
He's so neat, isn't he? Neat, not in a way that you'd expect a neat central midfielder to be a little bit more conservative with his passing, because as you said, he's got that range of passing in that club in his bag as well. But yeah, it just feels like most things, as you say, fall at his feet. And if there was a knock, maybe, why isn't a player of Tommy Doyle's pedigree playing in the Premier League? It was, people would say, oh, he's not a good enough athlete, but he's in the right place most of the time, so he can't be that bad an athlete. I think my highlight yesterday with Doyle came in the second half. My Blues had a defensive throw-in down in the bottom right corner, so the right back position, and there was just sort of one body swerve, and he just looped this. It was almost like a quarterback sending a pass to a wide receiver, a massive diagonal up to Dimmy, and it gets Blues 50 yards up the pitch, and Dimmy managed to hold on to possession. And it was literally just that one moment of that one feint that created probably 10 yards of space for him to play that pass in, and then he had the ability to play it. Paik's overall performance, goal aside, he's robust, isn't he? Paik is physically, he's superb. I always think, if you look at him, the build of him, the way he competes in midfield, the way he moves, I've not seen as many central midfield players faster than Paik. So as soon as he took that ball from Cipriano, he's moving away from them. He can finish. We've seen that he can finish right foot, left foot. Chris Davies made the point in his post-match press conference that when the coaches take the shooting drills before the game, they'll come in afterwards he is unbelievable technically, an unbelievable finisher and striker of a ball, whether it's right foot or left foot. And we've started to see that this season. I have been, and you, Brian, we've been massive fans of Paik since he came 2 years ago, and probably saying he's a Premier League player in the making. And I stand by that. He'll be 29 in March, and I don't see why the final years of his career can't be, at least some of them, spent playing in the Premier League, because he is a really, really well-rounded, complete midfield player. Yeah. Yes, you've said it. I don't need to repeat what you've just said there. Do either Paik or Doyle they do enough to challenge Stansfield for who was the official man of the match in your mind?
No, not. It was close. It was close.
It was close,
it was close. I think
I actually thought Neumann had a really good game as well, to be honest.
And Clara won 11 aerial balls. Like, at one point first half, they had two very big strikers, and at one point first half, balls were coming forward, and he was just repelling it and whacking it backwards. So I thought defensively, Blues were pretty good again. They've got a really, really good platform. But Stansfield was man of the match. If not just for that kind of 2-3 minute cameo before half time, where he's had half the Watford team on strings and then produced that absolutely fantastic assist for Gray's goal. Yeah,
we can't say what you've described it as on the document, but it ends in housery. We were chatting before we came on here just about the fact that Jay seems to be around if trouble flares, Jay seems to be around it, but he never seems to get sucked into it, if that makes sense. You like that about him, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. I was looking at the numbers last night. I mean, his yellow card record is not great. He's had lots of yellow cards in his career. He normally gets over 10 yellow cards in a season. Sorry, the dog's running around if that's coming through on the microphone.
It definitely is.
Yeah, she's on a mad one. So I mean, he's got a lot of yellow cards, but he's never actually overstepped the mark and got a red card, which I think shows, definitely an element of control in that when he's involved in these melees and often he's sparking these melees, that he's not overstepping the mark. He is staying within the rules and not giving referees a reason to send him off. Because let's face it, Jay Stansfield over the last 18 months has been a target for opposition fans, especially at away grounds. He'd be quite a popular player to be sent off, wouldn't he? So for him not to become embroiled in that and to always know where he's got to stop, I think it's got to be deliberate, hasn't it? And I think last night against Watford, it did work into Blues' favour in those 2 or 3 minutes, because he seemed to really rile Watford, and then walked away with a turn to Ngakia with a smile on his face. And then 2 minutes later, it's Ngakia who's getting the ball put through his legs, and Stansfield setting Gray away to score the second. So as long as he does never overstep the mark, and he did, he got a booking in the second half, and he's got to avoid a booking at Southampton this weekend to avoid a one match ban for 5 yellow cards. But if he doesn't get bans for it, then I'm not saying we encourage it, but it's a good thing that he's potentially unsettling opponents.
He's a wind-up merchant, isn't he? And he's abrasive, but under control. I also think back to Robbie Savage, who I think he got something like 80 odd yellow cards and never a red. Blues fans with better memories than mine will be able to put me right on that. But it is a skill, is knowing how far you can push it and then stop and not cross that line. And the yellow card he got yesterday, it was a technical professional foul. It wasn't a head loss moment, was it at all? Or getting sucked into any animosity. It's just a foul that needed committing at the time, I think. I went on social media afterwards, and there was a lot of love for Jay, and I tweeted, the fact that the goals and the assists are great, but it is the work rate that that Birmingham City fans love, and it's the wind-up merchant that pushes the buttons of opposition fans. But I'm pretty sure I said this. I do think that most fans in the league would love Jay Stansfield if he was in their team, just because he's so all in and he's affecting games.
Yeah, somebody mentioned to me on X this morning that he's a little bit Vardy-esque, isn't he? And that Leicester fans absolutely love him, and he loved him, and he took a little bit of kind of joy in trolling away fans by mimicking their celebrations and things. And I think when they played Wolves, he scored and did a Wolves celebration. So stuff like that to rile opposition fans. And Stansfield hasn't quite gone to those lengths, but there definitely is that, as Nathan Jones would put it, something housery about him.
Maybe there's one fly in the ointment. I think we both felt that Bright
Yeah, I think this is the key point you've got to make. I mean, the right back in Blue's system is probably the position where they have to sprint and run the most. Chris Davies expects him to be a right back 1 minute, and the next minute they expect him to be popping up in the centre forward position. And Tomoki Iwata has done this and probably elevated the position to new heights over these last 2 months and done it exceptionally well. And scored a goal from it while playing in that position as well, and got chances playing in that position. Bright Asai Samuel, to be fair to him, tried to do it. I think it was probably made more difficult by the fact that he has barely played in the 2 months since Iwata took his place at right back. You could see that he was blowing a little bit at times and was struggling to get up and down at the speed that he needed to. And Watford, I think it should also be said, is their best players were on the left. Marma is a very good player, and then
when Czech for Tadzi came on,
Bowler as well at left back was a real threat both halves. So they had chances. I was surprised Bright wasn't taken off a little bit sooner, because he clearly was struggling to keep pace with them, which is again to be expected given his limited football. But based on that, on Bright's performance, I don't think Tomoki Iwata is going to be sitting on the bench on Saturday.
No, I think that's fair to say. Alphonse came on, the lesser spotted Samsted, made an appearance, and he applied himself to the role up and down. Got in attack on one occasion, didn't he? One noticeable occasion, he was well far forward. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've never looked. I mean, apart from the game against Port Vale where he played out of position at left back and it clearly hadn't played a minute of football in 2 or 3 months or whatever since the end of last season and struggled, I've actually never been that against Alphonse Samsted. I think he's a brilliant professional. He really, really applies himself. He's a lovely guy as well. One of the friendliest faces at the Blues training ground when you go. Someone you really want to do well, and he just has been down the pecking order. I think it's that simple. I think Blues would have let him go in the summer if a suitable offer had come in and Samsted had been willing to leave. And I dare say it will be the same again in January. But, Chris Davies has been more than happy to reintegrate him back into the squad because of what a good professional he is and that he knows he won't give him any problems. I thought Samsted did quite well. I thought when Blues really dropped back towards the end and were essentially a back six with their wingers making it up to a back six, I thought Samsted defended his side really well, and the problems did actually slow down that side once Samsted had come on for Asai Samuel, who was clearly tiring.
Yeah, the substitutions just stemmed the flow a little bit, didn't they, down that side? I thought that they were good replacements from Davis, to be fair. Obviously, there's zero tension and Blues are potentially looking at another 4-goal home win if Marvin Duck scores in front of the Tilton at the start of the second half, isn't there? Maybe, is it harsh to say that was a bit emblematic of his evening? Or did he play better than that bad miss? I mean, it wasn't vintage Dux, was it?
No, it wasn't bad, but I feel like with Dux you're going to get there's going to be no in between really. He's either going to be not really involved in a game and largely anonymous as he was against West Bromwich Albion before he scored. I thought he was actually very poor in that game. Much worse than he was against Watford before he scored the goal. Or he's going to be absolutely electric and brilliant and involved in everything Blues do going forward, as he was in the 3 home games before that. So maybe he's going to blow a little bit hot and cold. I think the key thing with him is that he has made himself quite important to the way Blues play and the way they attack, and he was still involved in that second goal with a clever little pass inside Stansfield. So he's a really good player, as we've seen. He's probably ability-wise, when he's on it, he's a Premier League player, isn't he? Let's be honest. We've said that a couple of times. I just think maybe we're not always going to see the best of him. I think it'll be a test away from home in these next 2 games, because in his away performances, he hasn't been good. I think back to Borough and West Brom. So we do need to see, one of those St Andrews showings away from home, because you can't just be a player that, turns it on in front of 27, 28,000 home fans. You've got to kind of grind it out and give Blues that figurehead that he's someone, a striker with his physique, should be able to offer.
Which, to be fair, he occupied the Watford centre-backs yesterday, didn't he? He left the space. He was left the space for Jay to thrive in the areas that he plays well in. So, just by his mere presence there, he's doing a job, isn't he?
Yeah, and if we're sitting here saying Marvin Duck shouldn't know his best game, Chris Davies will turn around and say, well, he played the pass and got the pre-assist for Damari Gray's goal, and he also, with a clever run, took the defender away from Paik to create the space for him to take the shot for the first goal. So indirectly, he's had a hand in both goals, hasn't he? And that is, again, what he's paid for.
Yeah, fair dues. Let's have a look at the wider situation. So as I said earlier, that put Blues up to 7th. 1 point outside the playoffs. Coventry obviously still lead the way with 43 points, 10 points clear of second place Middlesbrough. And then you've got Millwall, Stoke, Preston and Bristol City from 31 points down to 29. And Blues just outside on 28. Observations on that situation?
Coventry have probably had such a good first half of the season that it's going to be very difficult to catch them, isn't it? I think they're probably looking at less than 2 points per game in these remaining 26, I think, and they'll still maybe be all right, because I think it'd still get them over 90 points. So, I think they're going to go up even if they slump a little bit second half of the season. I do think second place is wide open, though. I thought Ipswich Town would come on strong. They've been a little bit disappointing. They haven't really been able to string wins together. It's been 1 win, a draw, 1 win, a defeat or something. So they're not infallible. I've liked Stoke, but again, they've hit a bit of a sticky patch. And other than those, Middlesbrough look decent again. They're not running away from anyone. I think there's a real chance here for a team to come through this pack and grab second spot, to be honest. And I don't see why it can't be Blues. I don't think it's a vintage championship season. I don't think it's like last season. You're not going to have 2 teams on 100 points. You're not going to have third place on 90 points or whatever it was that Sheffield United got. So, I'm feeling quite optimistic about where Blues sit.
I agree. I did see Middlesbrough on Saturday. We'll promote Coventry effectively, shall we? I don't know there's too much to say about them at the moment. They do look the pick of the division at the moment. I went to Middlesbrough and saw them beat Derby at the weekend, and Derby gave Middlesbrough everything they could handle for the first 45 minutes. They were 1-0 up, scored in the second minute through Patrick Agyemang. But the second half, the script completely changed. John Eustace said after the match that his team ran out of steam, having been away at Swansea on the Tuesday, then up to Middlesbrough on the Saturday. But people on here will know, I'm a fan of John Eustace, but the critics of John Eustace, the ones who went to Norwich and said that, there was such a lack of intent when he was Birmingham City manager in that Norwich game that they were kind of done with him. The second half was a little bit like that. Derby didn't cross the halfway line virtually. They very much tried to sit on the 1-0 win. And in that respect, I mention it because they basically invited Middlesbrough onto them. And Borough didn't fashion too many chances, but Morgan Whittaker came in onto his left foot and curled the ball into an area, one of those where you don't know if it's going to get a touch or it's going to go untouched and nestle in the back post, and that's exactly what happened. So Middlesbrough won in Kim Hellberg's first game, but they weren't massively convincing. Stoke, again, to me, they're a little bit like Middlesbrough in the fact that the defence and the central midfield seemed good. Sorba Thomas is definitely doing well on the right, but they don't seem to be making the right attacking choices or making the right decisions when they get into the final third. I know Mark Robbins is frustrated with that. Preston, they're in 5th on 30 points, the same, just 3 points behind Middlesbrough in second. And I've got to say, I had Preston as potential relegation candidates at the start of the season, didn't you?
We're all Preston deniers, aren't we? Watching them this season, I haven't been massively impressed by them. They're quite direct. They get crosses into the box. They've got big physical centre forwards who can get on the end of things. And you can see why they've managed to accumulate points. Do I think Preston are going to end up in the top 6? Probably not. But who's to say they can't make a challenge? I don't think this is a particularly strong championship. I think there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be in the mix come the end of the season. As Tony Mowbray once said to us, literally it does feel like you're on the kind of a carousel, and you'll get to, it's just whoever lands on the 46th game, and whoever's in 6th or 5th at that time, just wins the day, doesn't they?
Yeah, gets the ticket to the dance at the end of the season. Exactly. I might be a Preston denier. I'm not a Paul Heckingbottom denier. I do think he's a decent manager. What I would say before we move on, if you look at the top 6 now, Coventry are gone, so the next 5, wouldn't surprise me if one of the teams that's not even in the top 8 is in it in 10 games' time. I'm looking at Ipswich now. We keep saying that Ipswich are going to come good, and then they go and drop one like they did at Oxford. I thought Southampton looked as though they'd really turned the corner after Will Still had gone, and then they let one slip at Millwall. And to me, Sheffield United looked like they could really go on a run. So in 10 games' time, it wouldn't surprise me if one of the teams that we're not really talking about is bang in the top 6, maybe even top 2.
Yeah, I mean, Southampton, I don't see how they won't come through with the players they've got. They haven't even given themselves that much to do. I mean, they've won 4 of the last 5, and they are right bang in the mix again now. I think that feels like a very big game between Blues and Southampton on Saturday. Already at this stage of the season, Sheffield United, I feel like I kept thinking they were going to come through, but then they'd lose the odd game, and I look at them and just think, have you given yourselves a little bit too much to do, even with Chris Wilder and what is quite a good squad on paper?
Yeah, they're 19th, but they're 10 points off Bristol City in 6th.
Yeah, that's a lot, because you're banking on the 13 teams or 14 teams between you and 6th also slipping up quite considerably as well, aren't you? I think
or cannibalising each other, which is eminently possible, even probable.
Yeah, and you'd have to still be Sheffield United, have an absolutely exceptional run. I wouldn't rule them out, definitely, but I mean, that would be some story. I suppose it would be a little bit Nottingham Forest-esque, under Steve Cooper, when they started terribly and ended up finishing 3rd or 4th and winning the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule anyone out at this stage apart from Sheffield Wednesday.
But no, I was going to say what I was about to say. I was going to preface with this isn't the greatest hot take. You might have just offered us the world's worst hot take there. This isn't the greatest hot take, but I mentioned Ipswich earlier. They're only 2 points behind outside the playoffs. They've got 27 points and they're in 9th, so not too much out there to say that they are potentially going to come on a bit of a run. As you've said, Alex, it is away. The away form is the issue. The next 2 games are away from home: Southampton, QPR on Saturday and next Tuesday. Let's kick the away form around a little bit and see if we can chance upon any kind of issue or solution. I'll start this by saying that people that tweet me on Twitter, I've got to call it that now, I've used the verb tweet, message me on X, say that the energy levels away from home aren't the same. So where do we go with that? They're not going to be, are they, potentially, if you're being a little bit more defensive? You're not going to be flying around on the high press, potentially.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if Chris Davies changes things and sets them up a little bit differently away from home in the coming weeks, because speaking to Patrick Roberts last night, I kind of put it to him, what's the difference here? Why are you so effective at home and not getting results away from home? And he did suggest that maybe their style does have something to do with it, that maybe it's just more suited to playing at home where they can take the ball and dominate, and that's kind of, teams sit back and allow them to do it largely at home, don't they? Whereas away from home in the Championship, you don't really have games like that. You go to places, even like Preston. Blues had 35% possession at Preston. Preston wanted to get on the ball and dominate them, and Blues dug in really well that night and obviously got their win. But they aren't a team that's built to play like that consistently and get results away from home. So I'm wondering whether Chris Davies could change something potentially, could make them a little bit more athletic on the counter-attack, so that when they do have to sit in, they have the tools to spring and break. Because, Marvin Dux, for all his qualities, he's not really going to run away from a defence, is he? So maybe they could look at moving Stansfield back up there or doing something different and getting more athleticism into that front line away from home if the results don't change.
I thought you were about to go down the Kyogo campaign. Kyogo must play away from home campaign. Then is that where you were going with that?
Somebody mentioned this to me in the media room after the game last night. Like Kyogo should start on Saturday, and I'm there thinking, there's not really any evidence to base that off at the moment, is there? Marvin Dux has done really well, built to a much better partnership with Stansfield than Kyogo did at the start of the season. And I think it's just at the stage now where we're like, okay, we really want Kyogo to score. I think Kyogo's, the chances that he's had up to now and the chances that he's wasted and not taken, I think he's going to have to wait his turn to get another chance. And I'd be very surprised if Chris Davies did anything drastic and started Kyogo ahead of Marvin Dux on Saturday.
Yeah, it feels like Dykes is the next change, doesn't the next cab off the rank? Certainly he was at the weekend. Last night. Just going back to the West Brom game and playing away from home, I thought Blues were a little bit too positive at West Brom if we're looking at that as the last piece of evidence in what they do away from home. Iwata played like Iwata does at home. He was way forward. There was tons of space behind him for probably one of the better counter-attacking teams in the division to exploit. Maybe Blues just need to sort of be a bit more conservative away from home.
Tighten up a little bit. Maybe if Iwata becomes a number 9 or a number 10 when they play at home, maybe he could just become another number 6 when they play away and just be a little bit more reserved and give them a little bit more solidity in midfield.
Is that just one piece of evidence and it's not in keeping with the rest of what you've seen away from home, would you say? Or would you say that is an abiding feature of Blues away?
It's just, it's an abiding feature of Blues away. It happened at West Brom, it happened in Middlesbrough as well. I think at Wrexham he was a little bit more conservative when he first came into the team, but as that right back, that marauding right back has become a real feature of Blues play over the last month or so. Tomoki Awad has been doing pretty much whatever he wants to do in possession, and maybe that's the key here to kind of rein him in a little bit. And you don't necessarily want to do that because he's been exceptional when he's been allowed to just do whatever he wants, but maybe rein him in a little bit away from home. I think Blues are going to have to, sometimes you look at Blues go into a game and you kind of think that they're set up the way they're set up. They're not massively going to change. I think maybe going into a game against the Southampton side that is banging form and do have some very good players at this level, maybe Blues do just need to tweak things and do something a little bit different to just make sure they're more solid and can stay in a game.
Yeah, 4-3-3 maybe with the 3 with Leonard, Doyle and Paik. Let's leave that to another pod. Let's have the first of what is sure to be 861,000 discussions about the January transfer window. Alex, where do Blues need to strengthen?
I was thinking about this last night. It's a really tough one, isn't it? Because they're invariably going into a window. There'll be something you don't expect. There'll be a player who wants to leave because they've not played much, or gets recalled by a loan club, by a parent club. And then obviously you need to go replace those players, and hopefully Blues can replace them with better players. I think looking at it, they need a striker. They need someone else to come in and take a little bit of the load off Stansfield and Dux. They need another alternative. Some people will listen to this and say Kyogo should be that player, and yes, he should. But so far over the course of the season, he hasn't been that player, and they probably need a little bit more reliability at this stage, unless Kyogo can have a fantastic December and really pick up. I think maybe another number 10. Chris Davies did allude to it at the end of the summer transfer that he spent his final day looking at assessing number 10 options. Kenya Fujimoto hasn't worked to now. I would hazard a guess that he's probably not going to work at this point, and that it's going to be one that Blues file in the mistakes transfer pile, because Chris Davies hasn't given him a look. Midfield, they look pretty good with their 4, although with Iwata at right back, you're a little bit light in there maybe. That brings us to right back. I think right back's a position that might need some attention with Laird. Chris Davies put a time frame of February for returning to training on him because he had a really bad hamstring injury. So if that's the case, Bright Asai Samuel's going away to the Africa Cup of Nations. We've mentioned Bright's form hasn't been brilliant. Chris Davies clearly doesn't quite fancy Alphonse Samsted as a championship regular. If someone came in for him, maybe that could open up a door. Right back, Blues are going to be very pushed in December at right back. Tomoki Iwata basically is it. Beyond him, it's Samsted, with Bright Asai Samuel going away to AFCON. So that is a position of concern. Left back, they'll have to see how Lee Buchanan comes back. We know that centre-back is going to become a talking point in January because we're going to come on to it, but I dare say Brighton will be thinking about recalling Aaron Cashin because his game time has been extremely limited.
It seems mad to think that just to pick up on right back, there are so many options, but one's off to AFCON and one's got a hamstring injury. That means to me, you've got two players that in March are available and hopefully fit, plus Uata can play there as well. You're only looking at a loan, aren't you? I think right back, really. I don't think you're going out and buying another right back on a permanent deal. Blues already have 5 loans, and yes, you can have as many as you want, but you can only play 5. You name 5 in a match day squad. You're then thinking about, what are we doing with the other loans? And you've mentioned Cashin there as well.
Yeah.
Lewis Kumas hasn't played a huge amount, but I don't know that I would say he's done anything wrong.
No.
I would imagine it's just going to be a discussion about how much football is he going to get and what can you give him and why isn't he getting more? Cashin Brighton can't be thrilled with how little football Cashin's got, and we've had a chat before, haven't we, about whether the next cab off the rank is Cashin or Jack Robinson should anything happen with Neumann or Clara, and I think we've gone round in circles and not really come to a conclusion.
I think it'd be Robinson. That's my opinion.
Do you? Right.
I think it would be
the striker one interests me because it seems to me like there are 4 striking options, some of which are good to very good, and some of whom have still got a bit to prove. Jay and Marvin clearly are the first choice front 2. Dykes comes off the bench and does a job for me, and Kyogo, they've spent money on Kyogo. I cannot think that they're going to go out and buy another striker unless they can offload Kyogo potentially, but then A, is Kyogo going to want to go, and B, is anyone going to come in and take a striker who's had a pretty difficult 2025?
That's an understatement, to be fair, Brian. That is.
Yeah, well, you know me, I'm always kind. I don't know where the route.
I think Dykes.
I suppose. Dykes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was going to say the only room I see there is if Dykes isn't happy with his role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think based on the summer transfer window and that Dykes was keen to move on at the end of it, I think that's the obvious one, isn't it? I think Dykes with Scotland going to the World Cup. Although I'm not sure it will make a massive deal of difference. I think
he's getting selected anyway. Yeah.
He is going to be in their squad. It's just whether he wants to play regularly and get himself in the best possible shape and form for that tournament to make sure he's the starting striker and not Shea Adams or Lawrence Shankland. I don't know. I quite like having Dykes as an option. He's been good for Blues on a few occasions this season. He scored 2 really important winning goals in the league. So I would be quite happy if Dykes stayed. Yeah,
same. Anyone? I mean, we've put on the document here who's leaving. I think who could leave. We've mentioned them mostly, haven't we? Obviously, Samstead was. I know they were trying to move him on in the summer. Dykes again, same thing. Fujimoto seems to be on the Ayumi Yokoyama flight path at the moment, doesn't he? He was loaned out at the first opportunity. Yeah, and then Cashin and Kumas. I think we've covered them all there, haven't we? Is that about wrap it up?
I think so, Brian. Yeah, just a couple of loans that probably will be out of Blues control. I think Kumas especially has been a decent squad player, has played minutes, just maybe not enough minutes for Liverpool's liking.
Yeah, indeed. That's brilliant. Alex, thank you very much for your time. Just to say, if you have missed, and I can't imagine you have, Alex's interview with Elliot Postma from Heatherwick, the designer of the Powerhouse Stadium, please do catch that or even watch it again because it is an absolutely compelling watch or listen. So good work on that one, Alex. All that remains now is to say keep right on from both of us.